Hey, Sivan here. Welcome to the second video in this tutorial. In this one we're going to start looking at navigation, transformation and primitives. So, first thing we're going to look at is navigation. So this is going to be how to kind of navigate around our workspace and objects, and then how to kind of focus on them. So, navigation is done quite simply. It all kind of relates around the Alt key. So, want to hold down Alt. First one is rotate. So Alt left click will rotate around your focal point. By default, focal point is the center of these two black lines, which in the middle is 0, 0, 0. So relating to the global up here. So 0x, 0y, 0z. That's the middle here. So it's going to rotate around that by default. And what happens as we rotate, the axes in the bottom left corner will show us how we're rotating, and this will always stay related to the grid. So this up here and this down here, they are global. No matter what we kind of do, what we make, they will always stay constant. So that's rotate. Alt left click, drag it left, right, up, down. Wherever you kind of want to go with it. Right, next one. Same again. Alt. This time, right click. This is zooming in and out. You can zoom without the Alt key. You can scroll the mouse, but what this will do is kind of step. So it's not smooth like when using Alt. It's a lot. So this is a lot more kind of precise, and you have a lot more kind of control over how far and how quick you zoom in and out. Left or right or up and down will zoom in and out. Same again, it will zoom in and out focusing on the center point, which same again, it's still 0, 0, 0 at the moment. Right, so last one on the rotate, on the navigation sorry, is Alt and middle mouse. This is panning. So we're going to pan across objects, across the scene, up and down. So same again, it's whatever it's focused on, it pans across that point. So let's have a look at an object to kind of see how they're affected it. So we want to start with a primitive. So when you're 3D modeling, no matter what application, they will all have some sort of primitives that you start with. These are the basic building blocks, and everything is kind of built on top of these or started with these. So you have to kind of get used to kind of problem solving about what objects where best to start and what primitive they best resemble. So we're going to stick with Polygon Primitives at the moment. We don't want to throw in too many different things into sort of what we're learning. So under Create, Polygon Primitives, there's one kind of option in here which I would suggest possibly turning off. It's interactive creation at the bottom. The difference with this is if I kind of turn it on, so I'm the same as your default, and I make a cube, it will ask me to drag and create an object. The problem with this is it kind of tells us on the right in our channel box that our scale is 1, 1, 1. That's because we've created it to this size. It does tell us down here that it's not 1, 1, 1, so we can, do units in there. Yeah, so it is 1, 1, 1. But then we also have another problem if it's not created in the middle, so we then have to do this as well. Whereas if interactive creation is turned off and we go create polygon primitive cube, it's created 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and everything else is 0. So it's created a scale of 1, 1, 1, and it's in our center point. This is kind of a preference thing. I prefer to be fairly specific when I'm modeling things. I like to start with a very sort of solid unit and then build up from that. It's your kind of preference, but all of the videos I do will have interactive creation turned off. So I've got a cube, so create polygon primitive cube. What we're going to look at first is the channel box. So I kind of mentioned it in the last video that you have these base settings. What you've got is, this is where local and global is different. So because this is primitive and it's at 0, 0, 0, these will be fairly sort of the same at the moment. So if I put, say, a 1 in here, it moves it to 0.1 in the x, so x down here, I put 1 in here, it's the same in here, it's 1. If I kind of want to freely move the object without having to know these sort of numerical values, I can use the transformation tools. So these are across kind of your QWERTY, so they relate to these tools in your toolbox. So the first one is Q, which is just to kind of select. So that's your selection tool. It's this one here. Hotkey is Q. Next one down the list is W. W is translation, so move. Depending on which version you're using, these handles will look slightly different. The arrows are default across all versions. I think in 15 they started adding these extra little squares that allow you to move in 2 axes. So depending on which version you've got, will depend on what kind of gizmo you've got. So all of these things, these kind of handles, they're called gizmos. You have some control over them. So plus and minus keys will make them bigger or smaller, and they go on for quite a sort of distance in either direction. So it's up to you what you want to work with. So you have, like I said, some options. If you drag one axis, it will only move across that positive and negative, which we can see in the channel box up here. So if I drag it back and forth, it will go positive and negative, same as me typing the value in up here. So any of these axes, you can move them how you want. The new thing that you have is the little square, which, like I said, will move in 2 axes. So over in the channel box, when I grab one of them, only 2 of the numbers will change. And then the other option you have with this tool is if you grab the middle, that will then change all 3 numbers. Not always the best option, because it's difficult to sort of work out in 3D space in X, Y, and Z where that's sort of going. So sometimes when working with objects, you may want to use your 4-view and kind of move it around in there. Also, if you grab the middle in one of your orthographics, it's the same as using the little square. It will lock out one of the axes, so it only moves it in 2 axes. So I'm just going to reset my object, so I'm just going to put 0 in here and hit enter, and then it will put it all the way back to the middle for me. Second transformation tool, so following on from W as translate, so translate tool, move tool, W, you've then got E. So rotate tool, E. The handles look exactly the same. You've got red, blue and green. These relate to your axes, same again, and you'll have one sort of yellow gold handle. So on this one it's in the middle, on the translate, on the rotate it's around the outside. So same again, one of these will rotate in one axis, the middle will kind of rotate in all. This global up here, whatever tool you have open, it will use that tool to base it on. So when I'm in translate and I put X1, if I then went to rotate and put X, for example 45, it's now rotated it by 45 in the X. So it's kind of just different ways of doing things depending on where you are in the project. You can either use your settings in here, or you do have global. Right, last transformation tool. So you've got W, E, the last one is R. So over here it's same again. So the last sort of option on here, scale tool. This one also has the new selection sort of tools on it, so we can scale it in 2 axes. In older versions, when you don't have this little square, what you can do is hold down Control, and what that will do is you get the little minus next to your cursor. That will remove that 1 axis. So it's basically the same now as grabbing this, but if you are using an older version, you will need to hold Control. Same again in the channel box. When we scale it, the values will kind of update for us, and we can use our global. They all link depending on which tool you're in. Right, so that's transformation tools. So you've got Q, W, E, and R. They are on the left in your toolbox. I would recommend these are the first hotkeys you sort of really must learn. You can't do anything in Maya without these 4 hotkeys. Next thing, kind of in the channel box again, we have inputs. So if you don't have your channel box open, if you've lost it, it's going to be one of these 2 tabs, or it will be this far right icon. What we have under inputs, it will say poly cube 1, or if you've made multiple, it will say cube 2, cube 3. If you click on this, so we've got the width, height, and depth, which is another measurement, another scale, but we also have subdivisions. So basically what we have is these are built up of base elements, which I'm going to kind of break down a lot in the next video. But for now, just kind of to show you what they do. So if I put these to 2, it's basically broken up my cube into more sort of segments. Depending on what primitive you have, will depend what subdivision options you have in here. So for example, in a cylinder, we have axes, height, and caps, whereas in the cube we have width, height, and depth. So depending on which one you've got, you may need to kind of experiment around with it, type sort of some values in and undo them if it doesn't go right. It's not the end of the world, just Control Z, same as majority of applications, and sort of see what happens. So that's the end of this video. In the next one, we're going to look at how to actually kind of get into the different levels of the objects, look at the different components, and how to kind of manipulate them. See you there.